Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Monday morning to you all. Hope you guys are doing well out there and having yourselves a great start to your day, great start to your work week. Got you an update on what's going to happen weather-wise for today. And also in this video, towards the end of it, we'll talk a little bit about what's going on throughout the rest of the work week. But I can tell you, the weather has really settled down. I've said that a lot in the past, and for you folks who've been watching for a while, I'll say it and then I'll jinx it, and then the next day or two we'll have something to talk about. But it continues to look calm. I kind of took some time yesterday evening to really kind of look at things, and I just don't see anything really out there. But there is one little feature we'll watch, and really over the next 48 hours, and we'll talk a little bit about that towards the end. The video could bring some unsettled weather for areas of the south, maybe even a little severe weather today for areas of the southern plains. We'll talk about that also. So we'll talk about what there is to talk about, and we'll keep on pumping out the content. I mentioned I would start the two-a-days back today, but I forgot that we have a soccer game tonight because we had to make it up from last weekend's rain out. So it starts at 6:30, so I won't be home till about 8. So I won't be able to get a video out to you guys. But luckily, there's not a ton to talk on. But regardless, we're going to figure out the weather for today. Hope you guys are having a great Monday. I know Mondays is not always the best day of the week for a lot of people. I know it's kind of kicking my butt this morning. But we'll make it through, and we'll definitely have a fantastic day out there. But with that being said, if you folks have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it, and thank y'all for whoever continues to view, regardless of how active or inactive the weather is. They mean a lot. The views have certainly dropped, but of course I'm not going to make some flashy, crazy thumbnail to promote some kind of big weather event that's not going to happen just to get clicks and views. No point in doing all that. It's been nice or relaxing last 4 or 5 days for me, so I feel refreshed and ready to go. If you guys got anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put it in the comments below so I can do that. I can pray over it, and others will do so too. Let's get rolling this morning. Water vapor loop. There is kind of a weird a bend in the jet out there. You got ridge building in over here, and it's kind of buckling further south, and I wish I had my cursor up. I do apologize I don't have it up, but this is going to try to pinch off an area of energy right into here in the southern plains, and as it does so, there'll be a little bit of severe weather across areas, maybe Oklahoma, southern Kansas, maybe even North Texas. We'll see what happens with there, but definitely not widespread. Not a huge deal, but it will, occur today. I do expect some big time storms just for a couple areas. I do think we could definitely have some photogenic storms out there for areas of the southern plains. Just like I said, not a big widespread event by any means. But other than that, for today, everybody else is pretty chill. It's going to warm up big time all the way up through the Dakotas. All that snow that fell in the Dakotas will continue to rapidly melt, more than likely. But everybody else, just not a whole lot going on. Watches, warnings, advisories. You got some freeze warnings over here. Make sure I had that right. Freeze warnings over here. It's pretty chilly all the way into South Carolina this morning. Dense fog advisories here in the panhandle of Texas. Some wind, high wind warnings and watches up here in Montana. But, just quiet. It's very quiet. Some flood watches continue down here in southeast Louisiana. Severe weather today. There will be a marginal risk that includes southeast Kansas all the way through the heart of Oklahoma. It does include Tulsa and Oklahoma City, down to Wichita Falls, Texas, and then a small section of northern Texas into here. Not really much of a tornado threat with this. It's less than 2%, but you never know. It's never zero, so always remember that. The wind probability, there's a 5% risk of damaging winds within 25 miles in any given location. Always say damaging winds. What I mean is winds pushing 50 knots or higher, which is 55 to 60 mile per hour winds, which a lot of the case with certain items that are just kind of hanging out in your yard, or just weak trees, weak tree limbs could fall on things, then that's considered damaging winds if it causes damage. Hail, we'll watch out. We'll see if this increases a little bit later today, but with some of these storms that do fire up, they're not going to be widespread. But whoever sees it could potentially, I wouldn't rule out any larger hail. I wouldn't say anything baseball or softball size or anything like that, like we've seen a couple storms in the southern plains over the last day or so. But definitely could get some larger hail in this area. It's pretty cool out there, pretty cold. We'll update this really quick. In my neck of the woods, it's about 39 degrees, so it's not quite cold enough to affect any type of things that you plan or anything like that. But once you get into North Carolina, hopefully you've protected some things. But even 34, 35 degrees doesn't always bother everything, but certain things it does. Stunt some growth a little bit. But once you get into Virginia, definitely widespread sub-freezing temperatures. So hopefully you covered up some things. I kind of mentioned this on yesterday morning's video that this was going to be a probability of getting at or below freezing in some of these areas. And we'll have another night tonight that might do about the same thing, but not quite as cold, I don't think, tonight. But definitely warmer in Florida this morning. And, the further you work west, the more you get into the influence of ridging. And you're waking up to some more mild temperatures compared to you folks in the eastern and northeastern U.S. Rain today, some showers out there in North Florida, maybe southern Georgia. But outside of that, could have some bigger storms that might fire up, cause us some ruckus down here in North Florida. Just maybe a showery kind of stormy day as this frontal boundaries just continue to be stalled and will eventually just fizzle out down here. So you could have a kind of a wet, stormy afternoon for Florida, but not everybody's going to see rain. Some sea breeze storms are certainly possible. And then as we get into the overnight hours, some showers are possible in southern Alabama and the far western panhandle of Florida. And then the piece of energy that we're going to talk about towards the end of the video will fully emerge into the Gulf of Mexico. Not fully, but a lot of it will. A large piece of it. And then there'll just be a lot of shower and storm activity kind of just spinning around the Gulf of Mexico. Some of this will wrap around and hit southeast Louisiana. That's why you have flood watches down here in the far southeast counties like the swamp regions and the coastal regions and the waterways of southeast Louisiana. You could certainly see some heavier rain. Nothing really in the way of any kind of severe weather. It's possible, but just some heavy tropical downpours down here as we get into tomorrow afternoon over the next, I would say, 24 to 36 hours. Up here in the northeast, not a lot to speak on, guys. Not really a lot at all. We get into this afternoon, maybe some showers. Try to drift out of Canada. Might make it into Maine, northern New Hampshire, and Vermont into the overnight hours. But outside of that, not a whole lot going on for you folks in the northeast. A pretty quiet day, a little chilly, but nothing you guys can't handle up here. This is where we could see a couple severe storms today, but not like I said, it's not going to be an outbreak or anything like that. But we're getting into, about, let's make this go up a little bit more. It's about 1 p.m. or so, 2 p.m. And we're getting a little bit deeper into the afternoon. Here comes a couple showers or storms popping up in eastern Kansas, right into this region. Would not be surprised if some of these get to severe limits. And as we get into about 7 p.m., these will try to develop and more so drift from north to south. Kind of a weird flow. It's kind of a north to south flow. And that's because if you go back and look at the water vapor loop, you got a flow kind of coming in right from the north due south. And then it kind of buckles and goes like this. And that's how this piece of energy is actually going to get cut off, because it pinches this energy off, and we call it an upper level low or a cut off low, or it actually gets kind of pinched off when the main stream of things, the main jet, if you will. So certainly one or two of these storms here in central to maybe western Oklahoma could reach severe limits. They'll try to drift into northern areas of Texas, maybe in and around the Wichita Falls area. Could certainly see a severe storm or two is definitely possible. Always never want to confuse. Sometimes I call Wichita Falls something else. So, but anyways, I think they will kind of diminish as we get into the overnight hours, lose some steam. But I would not be surprised if we see some big hail or sometime this afternoon, this evening. And then we'll watch out in and around the Houston, just south area, as we're waking up for Tuesday morning for some downpours, things like that. Certainly possible. North central U.S., quiet day also. Some showers and, we're kind of flying around in southern Iowa, northern Missouri. I think they will diminish. And then as we get into the afternoon hours, we already talked about Kansas. But everybody else, quiet weather and warm weather. And speaking of temperatures, these are potential high temperatures for today. getting into the 70s as far north as Canada. International falls could potentially get into the mid-70s today. The UP of Michigan, same thing. Wisconsin, 70s to 60s for highs. The entire Midwest, Ohio Valley, 60s and 70s for highs, 70s and 80s for the plains. It'll actually be warmer in areas of Minnesota than it will for the southeast, as ridging really influences the weather. But this crazy little pocket of cool air keeps showing up, and if a lot of people are wondering what is causing this, and I believe it's just because of all the snowpack that's still left on the ground. This is causing a ground inversion. And what's crazy is if you actually click a sounding for this region, if you notice, it's 40 degrees at the surface, but if you go like a few hundred feet up in the air, maybe 1,000 feet up in the air, the temperature skyrockets, all the way up to about, 20 degrees Celsius. So, it gets pretty high. It's 50, it's like 50, 60, 70 degrees, probably 50 or 60 degrees, like 1,000 or so feet up in the atmosphere. And it's because at the surface, it's much cooler because you still got a lot of that snowpack on the ground from the blizzard last week. So crazy difference between the ground temperature and then like 1,000 feet up. It's much, much warmer. So it's pretty crazy to see. It's just wherever that snowpack is. So that's what's causing this weird little pocket of cool air. If it wasn't for all this snow, it'll be warm in these areas too. But, pocket of cooler air is possible in the panhandle of Florida, where temperatures struggle to rise due to cloud cover and rain. But let's talk about what's to come over the next few days. We'll watch this piece of energy right in here. We'll kind of dive down here to get into the Gulf of Mexico. Not fully, but part of it will. We get into Tuesday morning. A lot of rain and shower activity continues to swirl around here near Louisiana, southeast Texas, maybe even southern Mississippi. Kind of swirls around here. Maybe a few days ago, 4 or 5 days ago, and even heck, I would say 2 to 3 days ago, this was looking like this could have a chance to somehow develop in the Gulf of Mexico, maybe become like a subtropical storm or something, build a little bit of some tropical characteristics. And what was going to happen is a little cutoff low was going to dive down to the Gulf of Mexico and try to stay in the Gulf of Mexico for maybe 2 or 3 days, long enough to maybe gain some tropical characteristics. Temperatures in the Gulf of Mexico, are probably like 70s on average. Some areas, some buoys are probably registering maybe around 80 degrees. It's warming up, but it's certainly not that warm yet. Once you get widespread 80s, that's what really supports tropical development. But in general, guys, this little area of spin is not going to stay in the Gulf of Mexico long enough to develop, more than likely. But it will re-emerge fully out the Gulf of Mexico, bring some consistent shower activity along the Gulf Coast throughout the week. I think it'll be a soggy week along the immediate Gulf Coast. So if you're spring breaking down here, if this week is your spring break week, the weather may not cooperate, but we'll see what happens here. This energy will eventually make its way into Georgia and the Carolinas, make for maybe another soggy Friday for certain areas, but we'll see what the weekend does. Another great way to look at this is the Vort Max at 500 millibars, and you can see this energy kind of dive south right into here. Gets kind of over the Gulf of Mexico. You can see these wind barbs kind of spinning around. That means there's a little bit of a spin developing. There's always a spin with the upper level low. But, it tries to get more enhanced as it flirts with the waters of the Gulf of Mexico. But it kind of spins around the same area. It just brings widespread showers and storms. And then eventually it gets a move on, never fully gets into the Gulf of Mexico, heads on off throughout the southeast and mid-south, and then, it's past, it's history after that. But like I said, between now and this coming Sunday evening, widespread 2 to 4 inches of rain is possible anywhere from the coastal regions of western Louisiana all the way through the panhandle of Florida, most of Florida too. Rainy times ahead, and it'll be kind of wet, especially as we get later in the work week for these areas, also a little bit further north in the south. But in general, this is going to really hug the coast down here. And like I said, if you're spring breaking down here, you're going to be dealing with some soggy weather. You're going to have peaks of sunshine. It's not going to be raining the entire time, but you're certainly going to be dodging some rain down here. That's all I got, guys. like I said, I probably won't be able to make a video tonight. I wanted to, but regardless, not a whole lot to talk on. I'll be completely honest with you. And I don't see anything over the next really at least 4 to 5 days that's worth even like diving deep into, honestly. So we're going to continue to pump out the content and at minimum make these morning videos. But appreciate the support. Y'all have a great Monday, and I'll talk to you soon.